Good morning. Hello, beautiful world. This is the Eye on College Basketball Podcast. To everyone joining us live on YouTube, we appreciate you. I am Matt Norlander. That's right. Starting the show. No GP today. He's out on assignment. He's going to be doing sideline duty on CBS Sports Network on Wednesday night for the Arizona State-Texas Tech game. So there's Kyle Boone right there joining me. And we have so much to get to. You know, before we dive in, we'll start with Kentucky and Tennessee in just a second. KB, last night felt like conference tournament week. I mean, the 7 o'clock Eastern window until 11 o'clock and really like crammed in like 7 to 10:30 or so was just one game after another. There truly were too many games and not enough screens. You had the unfortunate situation with Peacock having Illinois and UCLA and Purdue and Michigan both on. So you couldn't, unless you had multiple TVs logged into Peacock, you couldn't watch those simultaneously. You had ESPN Plus with a couple of games going on of relevance, Iowa State and UCF, and then Arizona and Kansas State. So you had that in addition to the YouTube TV quad box situation. My muscles were ready, but to anyone watching live, catching it after the fact, and that was locked in on Tuesday, you know what I'm talking about. It was, get ready. That was the March tune-up. How was your Tuesday night, KB?
Yeah, last night was a movie. Is that what the kids say? It was a wild night. It was a scene. You might have, if you were in my house, you might have caught me trying to double Peacock, which
you can't.
Sounds inappropriate, right? But
the double Peacock is only to be left to the professionals.
Yeah, but that's just that's what happens on a random Tuesday in college basketball season. Just double peacocking in the middle of the week. ESPN Plus had a couple really good games. What a night! I thought Auburn was potentially on the ropes, ends up winning. Mm-hmm. I mean, we have so much to talk about in Norlander.
No doubt. A lot of ranked teams on the road as well. Some went down, some did not. Ton to get to. I will start with what went down in Lexington. Kentucky wins 75-64 over Tennessee, gets the season sweep of the Volunteers. Really good scene in Rupp Arena. That program has gotten up, and that team has gotten up for so many big-time games this season. Kentucky has now won 7 games against AP top 15 teams this season. Not only is that the most in Division I, right now Alabama and Auburn have 5 apiece, but shouts to OptaStats, which I believe was previously Stats Inc., but now goes by OptaStats, had this tweet late on Tuesday night. With the 7th win over an AP top 15 opponent, the last time a coach had that many top 15 wins in his first season as a head coach at any school was when Tubby Smith took over at Kentucky in 97-98. That Kentucky team won the national title. Tubby Smith's Kentucky Wildcats that season wound up with 8 top 15 wins. Obviously, this Kentucky group has a chance as well. Couple more notes on Kentucky getting the win. It was the first home win against a top 5 opponent for UK since 2019 when they beat then number 3 Louisville. Yes, Louisville was in the top 5, and it really wasn't all that long ago. Tennessee is now 6-5 in its last 11 games after starting 14-0. Kentucky has won 5 of its last 6 against Tennessee, which, that's a good rivalry there. And man, oh man, the Vols just can't seem to get over on UK more times than not in recent history. Keep in mind, Kentucky did this without Jackson Robinson, didn't play because of the wrist. Lamont Butler goes down and re-injures the shoulder that kept him out. We don't know how long this is going to now keep him out. I saw Mark Pope afterwards said that he would expect Robinson and Butler to be back in time for March. But the fact that Kentucky did this, and Kirk Reese is still not back, so your top 3 point guard options, and you win by double digits. You win in the midst of a game that was tight, competitive. You lose Butler, and you're able to hold on and get it done. Part of that was because Kentucky was 12 of 24 from 3-point range. So it combined to go 24 of 48 from beyond the arc, and it's 2 wins over Tennessee this season. Considering if you want the argument for 3-point shooting to be a bit variant and a bit random, there it is right there. Tennessee is one of the best defensive teams in the country, and yet Kentucky, one of the best offensive teams in the country, shoots 50% in 2 different venues. Meanwhile, the Vols, KB, were 3 of 18 from beyond the arc. There's plenty to get to with this. Some big-time players stepped up in big-time moments for Kentucky that were not usually in that role. What were your takeaways of what went down in Rupp?
Yeah, really impressive from Kentucky. No Kirk Reese, as you mentioned, no Jackson Robinson. Lamont Butler goes out with a shoulder injury, and that's tough because Kentucky has been a different and I would argue much better team when he has been on the floor. So hopefully he can get healthy. But, huge game for Kobe Bria. Otega Owe had 13 points in this one. Trent Noah off the bench added 9 points. And, Kentucky just keeps firing, right? They just keep reloading with guards who, they expected to have Kirk Kriisa, they expected to have Robinson, they expect to have Butler, and they just keep coming at you. They have a ton of depth on this team. The offense continues to hum at an elite level, shooting 12 of 24 from three, as you mentioned, and then defensively. I think maybe it was one of those nights where Tennessee just could not make open shots, but hey, let's credit Kentucky's defense for making them miss those shots. 3 of 18 from 3-point range were the Vols, and just an ugly offensive outing, I think, for Tennessee overall. One of those where I think if they watch the tape back, they're going to be kicking themselves. But a great win for Kentucky nonetheless, getting a crucial home win and the season sweep over Tennessee. I thought it was really impressive how Kentucky closed this one, 17-6 run to kind of finish this one out in Rupp. And this felt like, it's not a must win. Obviously, Kentucky's going to make the NCAA tournament, but Kentucky needed this one in a bad way. And I thought the way that they did that, overcoming some adversity, very impressive from Mark Pope's Wildcats.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, KB. The Kentucky just getting this kind of win, owning the sweep over Tennessee. Who knows if any other team is going to have a 2-0 record against the Vols by the time the season's done. So I thought that was big for team morale. And, Kentucky's had really, really good wins. Going to be a really interesting resume. CBS has got the in-season, our one and only top 16 bracket reveal coming this Saturday, 12:30 Eastern on CBS. Would think Kentucky's going to be somewhere in that 3-line, 4-line. We'll see. And then whatever losses may come or may not come for Kentucky, it's going to have such great high-end wins. Will be an intriguing resume to see ultimately where the Wildcats land. And I agree with you. I thought that win was important for Tennessee. Sakai Ziegler played well. He had 17 points, 6 assists, pair of steals, 7 of 11 from the field. I thought he was pretty good overall. And Igor Milicic, he did well for himself, 16 and 9. But the rest of the cast wasn't nearly enough. Couldn't capitalize. Chaz Lanier was kept in check, and we've seen a little bit more of that. Wait and see if Lanier, I'm not going to say he's hit a wall, so to speak, but can he get a little bit more of what he had earlier in the season? Yeah. And when we get into March, can he be a guy that if Rick Barnes really says, hey, man, we're going to need you for 20 plus tonight, can he do that way more nights than not? So keep an eye on that. Tennessee's 20-5, probably off the one line for now as a result of this, but can get back onto that one line. But I'd probably knock them off. And frankly, we'll get to Florida in just a bit, but Florida winning on the road, Gators, getting up to that one line as well. So you might be looking at like Auburn. I'm just vamping off the top of my head. I actually didn't check if Palm updated the bracket, but I would think it's Auburn, Bama, Florida, maybe Duke. I don't know. Anyway, for Kentucky, Brea had some big shots. He had a great oop to Owe that made it 70-62. That's when the hinges started to rattle on Rupp, and that was when it was over. That was when it was a wrap. But I tell you what, you brought up Trent Noah, Travis Perry as well, who Bill has mentioned on the broadcast. This dude had more than 5,400 points in high school. Homegrown Kentucky boys, oh, by the way. They combined for 5 3-pointers. They had, I want to say, a half dozen, maybe even like 8 or 9 plays that in the flow of the game really meant a lot for Kentucky keeping pace and dictating the conversation. For those guys, non-starters, Kentucky's down multiple starters, to come in and combine for 19 points. They might not have another game collectively again this season where they do that much. And, further, these guys are going to be multi-year Kentucky players. Like they've got some big moments coming later in their lives. But who knows? Maybe they step up later this season. Maybe they don't. It's a good thing for UK that against a really, really good team, Mark Pope, it's just good for the coaching staff, good for the locker room. They can point to this game and say, and it's not platitudes. It's true. Without Trent Noah and Travis Perry, Kentucky does not beat Tennessee on Tuesday night. I thought that was an important development, a big picture for the Wildcats.
You mentioned the 1998 Kentucky title team. How do you feel about Kentucky's title chances this season? Is their offense good enough to win the national championship? Because I do think the offense has been good, obviously, and last night was a really important example of that, the way they shot from 3. But defensively, throughout the season, they've been pretty inconsistent in terms of just being able to rely on their defense. And, I feel like they may be limited to a certain ceiling.
Yeah.
When your offense is really good, but maybe your defense is a little bit suspect.
I'm with you. So they were 92 in adjusted defensive efficiency at Ken Palm going into the game. They're now 82 this morning, number 3 in offensive efficiency. I don't think Kentucky can win a national championship. A bit too up and down. The defense is a big concern. Lamont Butler changes so much now. Are they going to lose him for another game, 2, 3, 4 games? How long is he going to be out? It really changes it. They've got their next game is at Texas this weekend. Texas is desperate. We'll get to the Longhorns before we get out of here. Home to Vandy, at Bama, at Oklahoma, home to Auburn. If you're Kentucky and you were 3-2 in that stretch and you're still not fully healthy, you're doing just fine. So, I don't think that they can win a national championship. In fact, I did a dive on Kentucky a year ago. Might bring that back for a court report next week or the week after to refresh readers on that stuff. But if you've got that much of a discrepancy defensively, you can't win a title. You can make, with the 82nd ranked defense in the country, you can make the Final Four. That's happened. But to win 6 games, no, they'd have to turn into a top 35 level offense by the time we get to Selection Sunday, and I just don't. I don't think that's gonna happen there. We got plenty to get to. We can keep it moving here. We'll take a break, and then after the break, we're going to talk about more Wildcats. In fact, 2 more Wildcats that played in the Big 12 on Tuesday night. But first, Nada, you know what to do. Okay, let's go to the Big 12. Kansas State 73, Arizona 70. The Wildcats continue their tear. Can fairly call the K-State Wildcats the hottest team in the country at this point because they keep peeling off wins. Now, they're now 7-6. This team was 1-6 in the Big 12 the morning of January 25th, and now they're 7-6. One at home over West Virginia, one at home over Oklahoma State. You're not getting anyone's attention with that. But then at Iowa State, they win. They win at Arizona State, and the past 2 wins at home against Kansas, and now Arizona. Forthcoming, roadies, BYU, Utah, and the Beehive State over the next 5 days. So we'll see if they can keep up their winning ways. I thought last night was crucial. I think Kansas State is now on the bubble, but it's stuck at the bottom of the bubble. Like, it's just barely there. 13-11. In fact, KB, let me bring up. We're going to do some more bubble stuff in just a second here. So right now, Kansas State is 73rd in the net. It's 58 in KPI. These are the resume metrics. 69 in strength of record, 69 in wins above bubble. It's 60 in BPI. These are predictive now. Ken Palm has them at 57. Torvik's got them at 46. It's 4-5 in quad 1. Combined Q1, Q2 record, 6-9. It's just not good enough. They got 2 quad 3 losses. Like, they're not in the next 4 out. Yeah. And at best, they're probably like, I guess they're like the 7th team out of the bracket right now. But the point is, they're in the conversation. It was unthinkable they would even be here. A really gutty win. I can toss some stats and some figures at you in a second, but I want to toss it right back to you, KB. What'd you take away? What were your thoughts on how that game played out on Tuesday in Manhattan?
Yeah, what in the world's happening with Kansas State? That's kind of my first reaction. January 22nd, they lose to Baylor. That's a loss that puts them at 6 consecutive losses. And I don't know if you've been keeping up with your T-ball rankings this season.
I haven't brought the T-ball stuff out yet on the pod. By the way, if you're new to it, this was a user submitted metric a year ago. T-ball stands for they've been asked lately. Go ahead, KB.
They had to have been top 5 in T-ball at that point. Oh, yeah. I would submit, Norlander, they may be number 1 in T-ball right now. They've been awesome lately.
No, you don't want to be number 1. They might be 364 in T-ball.
No, we're changing the metric. They've been awesome lately. T-ball.
Oh, they've been awesome lately. No.
Kansas State.
I follow.
After 6 consecutive losses, they have won 6 consecutive games, and a fabulous win at home in Manhattan over an Arizona team that has been one of the best teams the last couple of weeks. They have been completely red hot, able to shut down Caleb Love in this one, just 3 of 15 shooting for Arizona and the Wildcats. Doug McDaniel, the transfer there for Kansas State, 24 points. Lucas Gasson with 16 and 7. Man, this has been just a completely wild turnaround. I don't think Kansas State has completely resurrected its NCAA tournament chances, but they're in the mix to be in the mix, right? Like this did not seem possible even just 2 or 3 weeks ago. And, they've got some chances upcoming. They go at BYU, they go at Utah. They finish the season. They face Iowa State. There's some really good chances for Kansas State to continue to stack its resume and get back onto the right side of the NCAA tournament bubble. That did not seem possible even a few weeks ago, Matt Norlander.
Yeah. Kansas State, by the way, 6-0 all time against Arizona at home. This was the first time these teams had played in Manhattan. Of course, it makes sense. Since 1981. No one that was involved in playing the game was even close to being born at that point. Doug McDaniel had also you mentioned 24 points. He had 5 steals in this game. He had a lot of big shots. Kansas State has won 4 straight games against ranked teams for the first time since 2019. Jerome Tang's team getting it done. Caleb Love entered the game. His previous 4, his averages were 21 points, 4 boards, and 5 assists in the previous 4. Finished with 6 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists. He had a heave at the end. Missed foul shots allowed him to get the ball in his hands, down 3. Couldn't make a second miracle shot this season to send it to OT. And on that note, Arizona 2 of 22 from 3-point range. 2 of 22. Kansas State went 1 of 19. It went 1 of 19 against a ranked team and won. That's what. How often can a team go 1 of 19 from beyond the arc against ranked competition and win the game? Mighty, mighty, mighty impressive for K-State. Getting there. Still not there, but getting there, and it's fascinating how they flipped it.
Yeah,
I'd love to hear some viewer/listener submissions on teams that you can think of at the high major level in the past 5, 10, 15 years, where specifically they were sub 500. I mean, let's go with what K-State was. How many high major teams hit between January 15th and January 20th, sub 500 overall, and then went on a tear where they won 6, 7, 8 in a row, where they won 7 out of 8 and became a potential bubble team in the process. We just don't get this that often. And Kansas State was a team I had in the preseason top 25. I had in mind, I had them 23, 22, 24, something like that. That was a wild miss. It still is very much a miss. They might be playing like the best team in America over the past 2.5 weeks, KB, but they're not a top 25 team overall in aggregate. But it's something else. Coleman Hawkins continues to play well. Gasson, I think he fouled out, but he had another really, really good game. Mm-hmm. Hey, cool story. Dangerous team. A lot of good stuff there. It is a Wednesday. And you know what that means? That means it's time for Chumba Casino. It's time for Stay or Hit. That's right. The tables have literally turned. I might even, since I'm in charge of this one.
Let's go.
Let's go a little music on this.
Yeah.
It's time.
Yeah.
Stay or Hit. Brought to you by Chumba Casino. Whether you're chilling at home or on the move, play for the chance to redeem some serious prizes with Chumba Casino. All right, KB. Today, it's Stay or Hit bubble prediction. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give you teams, and you're not going to tell me how you think about them right now. You're going to tell me the team that you like their chance better to make the tournament come Selection Sunday. Where will they be? So these are all bubble teams that played on Tuesday night. You ready?
Okay, so if I hit, I'm going to the next team. If I stay, I'm going to stay on the team that you proposed first. Am I following?
So if you hit, you are going to go to the team that I've just brought up, right? So do you want, I'm going to say K-State. This is incredible. All right, here we go. It's part of the game. All right, I'm going to go K-State and BYU. So K-State, 13-11, 73rd in the net. No team sheet metric better than 57 as of this morning, is now 4-5 in quad one. Or BYU won 73-69 at West Virginia on CBS Sports Network on Tuesday night, is 16-8, 41 in the net, 65 in KPI, 53 and wins the bubble. Not who do you think has the better resume now, K-State or BYU? Do you want to hit on K-State having a better chance at making the tournament on Selection Sunday?
Yes, I want to hit on Kansas State.
Okay, so he's bypassing. Yes. He's bypassing BYU. All right, K-State or SMU. SMU officially killed Pitt, I think, last night. Yeah, 83-63 win in Dallas. SMU fans were chanting "Fire Nico." The Mavs GM who was in the building. This guy will not be allowed to live in peace in that state for the rest of his life.
Rightfully so.
Incredible. SMU though, 19-5. 19-5, the Ponies. They're sneaking up. They're 8-1 in their last 9. They're 40 in the net this morning. All their team sheet metrics, except for KPI, are between 40 and 46. Better chance on Selection Sunday to be in the tournament. K-State or SMU? You gonna hit on K-State? Or no, you want to stay on K-State or hit on SMU? There we go.
The tables have turned so hard.
They've turned so aggressive.
Oh God, they just whiplashed. Palm actually had SMU in his first 4 out in his bracket yesterday. I'm gonna stay on Kansas State though.
All right, I'm stay on K-State. Right still like them more.
Yeah.
Let's go to the SEC. Texas, Alabama gives Texas its worst loss in the history of the Moody Center, which is like 4 years old. 103-80. Horns are now 15-10, lost 4 of 5, 31 in the net. Texas's resume metrics are all between 43 and 60 right now. Their predictives are better. They're in the 30s. You going to stay on K-State, or are you going to hit and say Texas has the better chance to be in the tournament on Selection Sunday?
Yeah, I'm going to stay on K-State. I feel
look at you.
Yeah, Texas is quickly ascending the T-ball rankings, I feel like.
Yeah, they're in the top 10.
It's tough. Last 3 in a row. I think Texas' resume right now is maybe looking a little better, but Kansas State, I think they're heading the right direction. Don't feel the same about Texas right now.
Next one. Stay in the SEC. Georgia lost 69-53. A&M deleted Georgia in the second half Tuesday night. 22-0 second half run for Christian's team. Georgia had 4 points in the first 10 minutes of the second half, KB. Bulldogs are 34 in the net. There's 37-40 in the predictives right now. They're between 39 and 49 in resume. Mike White's team is stumbling. You gonna stay on K-State, or do you finally hit here on the Georgia Bulldogs? Who's in the better spot on Selection Sunday?
Give me a hit on those Georgia Bulldogs.
Hey!
Palm has Georgia in his first 4. It's been tough sledding, obviously, for Georgia. They started 14-2, 16-9 now. It would very much behoove the Bulldogs to pick off one of Mizzou or Florida at home the next couple games. Obviously heading the wrong direction lately, but
wrong direction. This is the anti-K-State. They might be doing T-ball.
I know.
2-7 in their past 9.
It's been tough. Listen,
and the wins are at home over South Carolina and LSU. Those are statistically the 2 easiest wins you can ask for in the SEC right now.
I understand that. Don't doubt Mike White. Georgia, the Bulldogs, they're going to get this thing right. They've got a couple home games that I think they can pick off one of some pretty good teams. There's some good opportunities for the Bulldogs. I think they can turn it around. They've been ass lately, but I think they can turn it around.
Last one. You going to stay on Georgia? It's an intriguing one here. You're going to hit on George Mason. Patriots win on Tuesday night in OT, 76-74 at St. Louis. St. Louis got it to OT on a big deep 3 by Isaiah Swope. Fun game. 10 wins in a row for the Patriots. Tony Skinn, alum, on that 05-06 team that made the Final Four. Patriots are now 20-5. They've got the best record of any team I've brought up here, but they are in the A10. 63 in the net this morning. All their metrics are between 46 and 66. Yeah. A10's trying to be a 2-bid league. Mason, VCU, we'll see what happens. Georgia or George Mason, who's in a better spot a month from now?
Oh, I'm going to stay on Georgia. There's a 29 spot difference in the net right now between Georgia and George Mason. Georgia's at 35, George Mason at 64. Would love to see a 2-bid A10 again. Got to go on the road at VCU next week. Be an interesting game. I think they can get into the field, George Mason, but I think I'm going to stay on Georgia. Where would you lean on this one, by the way?
I'd go. Let me bring up Georgia's schedule real quick. So Georgia's now home to Mizzou, at Auburn, home to Florida, at Texas, at South Carolina, home to Vandy. Give me Mason.
Yeah.
Give me Mason in that spot. I think George Mason will be in a better spot than Georgia to be in the tournament. Bulldogs got to get it together, man. Mike White's team got off to a good start and won 16 games this year, won 20 last year. They're going to probably hit 20 again, but Georgia could be the team. Could be Georgia or Texas that tests the theory that you can go, have 7 wins in the SEC. I'm talking like SEC tournament included. Like 7 wins, is that going to be enough? Are you going to have enough quality wins to get you in? They might really test that theory. I like Mason there overall. That was the Stay or Hit segment brought to you by Chumba Casino. Ready to dive into some excitement? Chumba Casino is where it's at. It's free to play, so just jump right in and explore over hundreds of social casino-style games with fresh new releases every week. Play anytime, anywhere, and enjoy free login daily bonuses and an amazing welcome offer. So, hope you enjoyed it. I know GP did. I know GP liked me doing that one instead of him today. Hey, let's take a quick break, Nada, and then we're going to get into UConn winning at Creighton, which wound up being as much about what happened on the court as what happened after the game. We have to get to it. But first, partners, let's do it.
We dig it. Do you? The Pro Volleyball Federation on CBS Sports Network.
By the way, we have a poll up on YouTube right now, and we asked our viewers which of these 4 bubble teams that were just featured in that segment do you like the most moving forward, I guess. K-State's winning that at 38%, Texas 29%, George Mason 23%, and No Faith in the Ponies coming in 4th right now with 11%. Be interesting to see if that winds up being the case. Let's go to Omaha. UConn wins 70-66 over Creighton. Entertaining game, good game. Creighton gets up early. UConn makes a big second half surge. In some ways, UConn kind of did to Creighton what St. John's did to UConn just a few nights ago. Liam McNeely sets a freshman record, 38 points. He also has 10 boards. Just an amazing performance in a spot, a huge game, huge spot. You know, UConn wasn't going to fall out of the tournament picture with the loss here, but this is just a lot of good wins on Tuesday. I don't know if any win will carry more insurance quality than what UConn was able to do in Omaha. They come back from 14 down. The last 2 freshmen to get at least 35 and 10 against a ranked team, by the way. Cade Cunningham, your boy. Trey Young, that's per Scott Van Pelt's Sports Center show. I saw that pop on the screen last night as I was doing some court report writing. So Cade Cunningham and Trey Young, last 2 to get 35 and 10 against a ranked team, and McNeely does it on the road. Creighton couldn't get it done. Ashworth missed a 3 that looked like it was going in. We'll get to the Hurley stuff in just a second, but give me your thoughts on what UConn did on Tuesday night. Longest road trip of the season, obviously. Stores or Greater Hartford out to the middle of Nebraska.
Hot damn, what a win for UConn. Dollar beer night in Omaha, going on the road.
Yeah, and McDermott apparently bought like 60 pizzas for all the students that were waiting. I love to see and love to hear that. Coaches do that with regularity, but just part of that college experience. Good on McDermott for forking over. I mean, a pizza these days, I feel like a large is going for like $24. It'll probably be like $35, by the end of next month. And make no mistake, you can afford to do it, but dropping a cool. Let's do the math here. Let's say they got it in bulk. Let's say the pizzas were $20 a piece. 65 pies times 20. McDermott dropped a cool $1,300 for the students. Love to see it.
Damn, man, maybe you should have dropped some money on some eggs. Just
they might. College kids, they're not looking to get their egg intake. I think they're fine living on what they're living on.
Just a little over easy. Get them settled. Get some protein before the game.
Yep.
Huge win for UConn going on the road at Creighton. Creighton was actually the only team last year to beat UConn after the calendar turned to 2024. Obviously, UConn won the national championship. McNeely was awesome in this game, 38 points, 10 boards, and kind of a game we've been waiting for from UConn, right? Because they've been, hit or miss throughout the season, obviously losing 3 straight in Maui. As you remember, you were on the scene there at the Maui Invitational. And that was kind of like a hard reset for UConn, a kind of a reality check that, okay, maybe we're not just going to march to 3 consecutive national championships. And then McNeely goes out with a high ankle sprain. He misses 8 games, comes back last game, had a good scoring night. It wasn't terribly efficient, but was just awesome in this game. And Hurley, after the game, we'll get to his antics in just a little bit, but he called McNeely's game like one of the best performances from a college player this year. Points-wise, not so much the case, but just overall performance-wise, where UConn needed a huge performance, lifted the Huskies to a huge road win when they needed it after losing at home to St. John's on Friday. Man, it was just an awesome game, and Creighton fans throughout this game cheering bleep Dan Hurley. Of course, Hurley gets some revenge in this one. Man, Alex Caravan, 0 of 7 from 3, solo ball, 0 of 4 from 3, still win this one. Super, super impressive from the Huskies. Like, one of the better performances that I've seen from a team going on the road this season. And it was fun watching the postgame last night. I don't know if you saw it or not, but Liam McNeely and Dan Hurley kind of sitting side by side. And it felt like I was watching Dan Hurley's clone, like his twin.
Yeah. Man, he's taken the mantle from Cam Spencer, who very
absolutely. Yes. Cam Spencer last year was Dan Hurley's clone. Just so much swagger, so much attitude, so much sass wrapped up into a ball. And McNeely was just, I mean, he was just on one last night. And of course he was red hot, 38 points, but yeah, it was just an awesome performance. Awesome win for UConn on the road.
Yeah. McNeely had a great night. Wasn't even the high score in college hoops on Tuesday, by the way. Shouts to Miami University's Cam Kraft, who had 40 and hit 9 threes in a 92-80 win for the Redhawks over Toledo, and that ended a years-long losing streak for that program against Toledo. So shouts to Cam Kraft, who just lit it up. And McNeely, he did have one of the better games by any freshman in the past decade, and certainly one of the best games this season. But ironically enough, wasn't the high score on Tuesday night in college hoops. You mentioned Caravan. He missed a foul shot late that still kept Creighton with a little bit of hope there. He's had a couple of those moments this season. Hopefully he can shake that off so that if and when he finds himself at the line again in March, those kind of images can be out of his mind. Caravan had a nice running teardrop that swish that was a big bucket in real time that mattered. But yeah, it was, I mean, KB, it was overwhelmingly McNeely getting this done. Solo ball had 11. John Diarra only played 7 minutes. He's banged up. They was talking to someone on Monday, and they were saying like UConn's in a good spot here in this regard. Creighton doesn't force a lot of turnovers. They got some point guard issues. That was the case. UConn only had 6 turnovers on Tuesday, and that wound up mattering. Creighton had 10, which isn't a huge amount, but every little thing does matter. Kalkbrenner finished with 13. Ashworth had 13. Jemiah Neal had 12. UConn in general, its defense, it did a really solid job. You're on the road. Creighton's a team that can really scheme you up and score when they need to. It's not an A level. It's probably B plus level kind of offense this season for the Jays. But Creighton's first loss since January 3rd. So and in doing so, UConn does St. John's a favor, because now St. John's is now 2 games up in the Big East. Mm-hmm. And while it's not guaranteed, I find it highly, highly unlikely St. John's will not at least be tied for the regular season championship in the Big East now. It's going to have to drop 3 games behind. It's got some tough ones coming, including it's got to play Creighton this weekend in the Garden, got UConn the following weekend. It's got to go to Marquette. So it's still some tough stuff, but that was, good win, good game, fun broadcast there. And then I thought that would be it. That's not it. After the game, Dan Hurley gets a little mouthy with the Creighton fans. Now, keep in mind, UConn had never won at Creighton, period. And so Dan Hurley finally, this is the last building he had not won in the Big East. The fact that he felt compelled to do all of this is wild to me. Nada, if you have B-roll to queue up here, we've got some local news coverage as well. We've also got sound. If you're watching right now and are unaware, Dan Hurley couldn't get out of here without. Two rings, Baldy. Let's go, baby. Okay, so that's 2 rings. If you're watching, we can roll this through a couple times. And then Nada, if you can B-roll after the one that I sent you earlier, because it's even before this, he's on the court talking, doing 2 rings, waving bye-bye. Listen, the man is a content machine. Dropping a 2 rings Baldy is a new one.
While being bald.
It does bring to mind.
Do you see the irony here?
Dan,
Your ball.
I mean, it makes it even funnier. And if you're watching, you can see Sports on 6. Credit to the local affiliate there. Creighton fans just giving it to Hurley. I love the fact that this is happening when UConn just fell out of the rankings for the first time in like 2.5 years. Folks defending, I agree. In the chat, folks are saying he's not completely bald.
He's hanging on.
The bald community would agree.
Your ball.
I think, and I'm not in the bald community, so I'm not going to totally speak on behalf of the bald community. I might need a Larry David verdict to come in here, but now to play the press conference quote too. I think this is about a minute long. We've got even more from Dan Hurley after the game. He was obviously asked about it. He was willing to talk about it. If you got it, Nada, let's cue it up here.
What was that moment like when you got to turn to him and wave?
Well, I just wish there was more people still here. You know, that was the only thing, because when I've gotten my butt kicked in here, minus the COVID year, which we would all like to forget, where I think this was the only place we came to that actually had fans that year. You know, but I've obviously had to walk off unceremoniously, you know, just crushed by the crowd and, you know, cursed at and you know, but I don't really, as long as they're not leaning over the rail and getting in my face. I mean, I think it's what makes college sports so much better, or college basketball so much better than any other type of basketball is. You know, you got your, although the home fans here didn't get the win that they wanted, but they got a show. I mean, they got an intense game with, you know, with so much passion and a life or death struggle. You know, I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, that was very gratifying. I waved at some people, but I just wish that there was more of them still left. There's been a lot more left when I've lost, and did a good job of stopping me.
And that's how the press conference ends. Is there something wrong with me that I'm continually entertained by this? I get it. I get it. There are a lot of people that are going to hear the clip, see what he did, and their disdain for Dan Hurley is only going to increase. By the way, Baldies in the chat are rising up, saying Hurley is one of us. I understand the timing is not great. Parrish should be on the show to really address this matter. He's not here. I get you on that. The timing is not great. But again, GPs, if you're watching live on YouTube and checking in mid-show, Parrish is doing Sideline tonight on CBS Sports Network. So he's got production stuff and shoot around. So KB stepping in here. Kyle Boone, give me what you got on Dan Hurley's latest ep. It's every week with this guy. It's just incredible.
It does not get old, Norlander. It doesn't. Like I'm
get old. It's something. 2 rings Baldy goes into the pantheon. It's not on my board yet. It's going on the board. 2 rings Baldy.
It has to. Absolutely. Like, I mean, I understand that people tire of Hurley's antics, and to some extent, I do too. Certainly, like the sideline antics and just maybe the way that he treats the officiating and all that stuff. Like totally. I wrote a story about that earlier this season, but yeah, like it is fantastic. I mean, just him like, asking like, oh, I wish there were more people here in the arena. They had more people here last year.
Well, and keep going, but it's a refresher. If you forgot, I think it was last season. Maybe it was 2 years ago, but I think it was last season where like, there were people going at Hurley and they lost, and Hurley went back at him and was basically like, keep your distance, don't mess with me kind of deal. So it got super testy. So there's been a backstory that has been building here. And at this point, UConn wins. A lot of people filter out, and they weren't as closely in his face the way that they had been. Keep going.
That's correct. Yeah, there's definitely some history there between UConn and Creighton, especially in that building. So yeah, there's some pent up tension, some pent up frustration from Hurley being released last night. Felt good, I think, to get a win on the road, especially at Creighton, the building that has been very elusive for UConn, and for him to get a win there. And he was next to Liam McNeely in the postgame, kind of almost goaded McNeely into being like, talking about tough atmospheres to play in. And he was like, yeah, well, this was probably the toughest that I've played in this season. He's like, well, what about what about Texas? And McNeely's like, well, that wasn't really a tough place to play. So, but I thought that was great. But yeah, it was a great win for UConn, obviously, and Hurley, getting kind of the monkey off his back and talk your talk, man. You got to go and do it. You done it, and you get to relish in it as much as you want.
Give me Blue Jays, Huskies in the Big East tournament. These teams are now split. Creighton won at UConn on New Year's Eve, and so now they're split overall. And I want a third matchup. Nada, can you? I got to hear Two Rings Baldy one more time. The audience, can you just play? I got to hear this one.
Two rings, Baldy.
I tell you what,
Kevin B in the chat.
Read it. Read what Kevin B just brought up here, because I had not considered this.
I did consider it, and I think it's a very plausible conspiracy theory we should at least throw out here. He says, is it a coincidence that we don't have GP here today? And an anonymous fan was told, 2 rings, Baldy. Any chance GP was in Omaha last night? Where was GP last night on Tuesday? Just saying. Makes you think.
My mind is blown. Parrish, where the hell were you last night?
He's got some things he needs to answer for.
Is it conceivable that Dan Hurley would approach Gary Parrish and say 2 rings, Baldy? I'm going to put the chances at above 0.
It's got to be at least above 0.
He claims he was in Lubbock. You tell me he can't be in Omaha last night in Lubbock this morning? I can get you a flight. I can find you a connection. I can get you a connection out of Dallas.
That said, UCLA play last night, right? So he was also coaching.
He was all over the place.
Well, he was in multiple places last night on a Tuesday. Like, what is GP doing out here?
He was all over the place. Speaking of the Big Ten, let's get to all that. But let's start with the most surprising score of the night. So it's weekend whip around time. Indiana 71, Michigan State 67. Ken Pom had a tweet he had a post on Blue Sky. Reminder, if you're not following me and Kyle Boone, we're over there frequently, over on Blue Sky. Ken Pom posted final minute length. UConn Creighton for the final minute of gameplay. It took 19 minutes in real time. Indiana Michigan State took 16 minutes. Why? Reviews and foul shots and timeouts. You know the deal there. MSU and Indiana traded about 5 possessions worth of fouls and free throws. They got caught in this loop, in this cycle, in this echo chamber, whatever you want to call it, where Indiana wanted to start fouling early to not let Michigan State take a 3. And then I think Michigan State instigated because they fouled them too early to begin with. And so then by then it was done. Indiana deployed a zone that flummoxed Michigan State. Michigan State never even, at the end of the game, after the foul shot stuff, and they intentionally missed a free throw with 6.5 to go. Seconds, that is, not minutes. There was a lot going on in Breslin. Tom Izzo would have passed Bob Knight for all-time wins in Big Ten history against Bob Knight School. That didn't go down. Yeah. Do your thoughts on what the hell happened and Mike Woodson's team pulling off the weirdest result? And congrats to the Indiana players for getting it. I mean, no doubt about it, but that was the weirdest outcome of the night.
Yeah, Izzo got tricked by Mike Woodson's own defense. That was impressive. Indiana 71, Michigan State 67. Malik Renew 19 points coming off the bench, and Mike Woodson postgame said that he actually benched Renew. Told him before the game that he was going to come off the bench, and was fantastic in this one. 19 points, and Indiana's been playing with fire. I know that we like to clown on Indiana. People like to clown on Indiana because that situation has gone south there. Mike Woodson is obviously lame duck. He's going to step away at the end of the season, but they've been playing pretty competitive basketball. And this was a really quality win going on the road in East Lansing. Hoosiers have been very competitive. They've been on the wrong side of a number of very close games. And this was to go on the road, beat Michigan State, the team that has been top 10 for much of the last 2 months. Running a zone defense, I mean, they did it pretty convincingly. This was very impressive from the Hoosiers.
Sparty 4 of 23 from 3-point range. They were They were twisted entirely. And Indiana in winning, by the way, I didn't include Indiana in the stay or hit, but IU is 15-10. And the nature of this win, actually, like Indiana is just as much, if not more so, in the bubble conversation than K-State right now. It's close. It's actually pretty compelling if you do resume comparisons. And fortunately, those things are going to sort themselves out over the next few weeks. But lost in the, like, what's the hell is Michigan State doing losing this game? And Mike Woodson just proved Kyle Boone wrong by actually winning a game after KB said he wouldn't win a game for the rest of the season.
Tough scene.
Tough scene. But Indiana, like, has some life now. They got to do a lot more, but they finally get a win. They stopped the bleeding. It was 5 in a row and 7 of 8 prior to that, but they get the win here. And now Indiana's at home against UCLA on Friday night, home against Purdue, home against Penn State. You go 2-1 in that stretch. There might be something there. Interesting development with the Hoosiers there. Michigan State, meantime, has lost 3 of 4. The win coming in dominant comeback fashion over the weekend against Oregon. And next up is Saturday at Illinois, home to Purdue, at Michigan, at Maryland. It's why we talked about it on the pod, and then I did a CBS Sports HQ hit yesterday, and I was asked to kind of break down the Big Ten race. And I said, I don't think Michigan State's going to finish atop the league. Like, I don't even think he'll get a share because Michigan State has the toughest remaining schedule of Purdue, Michigan, Michigan State, Wisconsin, UCLA. Sparty had the toughest one. Still can finish top 3, might even finish top 2, but I just thought it was too much. And losing at home to Indiana was a big one. Let's keep it in the Big Ten, and let's talk Michigan over Purdue. 75-73. Wolverines are now in first place here on Wednesday, February 12th. Big Ten ledger reads like this: Michigan is 11-2, Purdue is 11-3, Michigan State is 10-3, Wisconsin is 9-4. Those are your top 4 teams in the league. It's the first win for Michigan against a top 10 team since they beat Tennessee in the tournament in 2022. The impressive thing about this game to me, KB, was Michigan was down in this game for about 34 of the 40 minutes and was able to come back and get a win. This team is just, it's insane how many close games it plays in general. It seems to want to dance on the knife's edge, and that will come back to bite Michigan. They've had, I think, 11 games now decided by 5 points or fewer. Danny Wolf was really, really good again. I mean, he had 4 or 5 play sequences in this game where I tweeted on Tuesday, like, I don't know if he's going to be a lottery pick. I just know that for his size and offensive skill, like, to me in this draft, he has no business falling beyond like 13, 14, 15. Defensively, like, you know, there's some, he's not an A-level defender, maybe not a B-level, but he's certainly adequate, and he's proven that with what Michigan's asked him to do this season. But just insane. Purdue had Trey Kaufman Wren foul out. Caleb First fouled out. Braden Smith hit a couple of big threes. He's ridiculous. I'll have something else on him in just a second there. But yeah, Michigan and getting the win, I thought it was significant, not just for the Big Ten race. Remember, this team got absolutely smoked in January, 91-64 against Purdue. So it avenges the loss. Purdue didn't have any bench points either in this one. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. Braden Smith was big in this one. Obviously, Purdue was not able to close that out, but 24 points, 5 assists, looking like a lock to be a potential All-American at the end of the season. He's been one of the best guards in college basketball. The 2 bigs of Danny Wolf and Vlad Golden, I thought, took over in the second half for Michigan. Wolf was huge down the stretch. He had 8 of his 15 in the second half. Golden had 10 of his 12 in the second half. Yeah, there was a moment in the second half where Danny Wolf, all 7 foot of them, had a Euro step, and it's like,
it was sick.
What am I even watching here? Actually, Adam Finkelstein and I, cover the draft for this YouTube page every once in a while, and we have a draft show that we'll be posting, I believe, on Thursday, where we talk a little bit about Danny Wolf and his potential lottery odds. And I think it's very possible. This was a guy who was not absolutely on the case coming into the season. Like, he was not on the radar whatsoever. He transferred in to Michigan from Yale, and he's been awesome. Like, he is a 7-foot point guard in some ways. Was fabulous for Michigan down the stretch there. Dusty May gets a huge win, And I thought it was really impressive the way that they responded, because as you mentioned, they went on the road at Purdue and got absolutely boat raced. So to get a win, I thought was very impressive. The way in which they did that, winning a close one after earlier this season, feel like they were inventing new ways to lose close games. Very impressive. This Michigan team has made some developmental stretches throughout this season that I think is very, very encouraging if you're a Wolverines fan.
Braden Smith, by the way, hit a couple of threes that he was trying his best not to lose the game. He finished with 24 points, 6 boards, 5 assists, 0 turnovers, 1 foul, played all 40 minutes. Mike Boynton is the lead assistant at Michigan, former Oklahoma State coach. You know him well. Here is what he texted me unprompted late last night. Braden Smith is the best point guard I've ever coached against, not named Steph Curry. And there's some other stuff in there. And I said, what? Then he texted me back this morning. He said, I gave more thought to it. And this is what he sent. John Wall, Jalen Brunson, Tremont Waters, Devon Dotson, Joel Berry, Brandon Knight, Eric Bledsoe, Javon Carter, Deuce McBride, Trae Young, Steph Curry, Frank Mason, Devontae Graham, Monte Morris, Tyrese Halliburton, Jeff Teague. I've coached against all of them. Steph is the only one who at the time in college has been better than Braden Smith. That is insane. Insane praise. Braden Smith right now is third for player of the year behind obviously Broom and Flagg. He's third. He is firmly third. He's ridiculous. But that's just, even if you want to disagree with Boynton on that, he's the one who's actually had to scheme and coach against all of those point guards. And he's telling me that at college right now, with what he's doing, his value, his playmaking ability, he's the second best one to Steph Curry in college. Crazy.
Yeah, very impressive. I mean, this is a team that, by the way, lost Zach Edey. I don't think we have to inform listeners of that. But the leap that Braden Smith has made from even last year to this year has been impressive and absolutely necessary to keep Purdue humming in the Big Ten atop that race. Like, they are very much still in the mix here, obviously, even with the loss. Man, that's high praise for Braden Smith.
That's a wow one there. Yeah. We've got a dribble handoff going up on Thursday about which guard in the country would we take. And I had already decided Braden Smith, but now I'm just going to reference that opinion and just submit my capsule. Keep it in the Big Ten. Illinois wins 83-78 over the Bruins. UCLA won 7 games in a row. That streak is snatched. Bruins surged deep in the second half, 16-2 run. Illinois almost gave it away. Illinois is completely erratic and completely irresistible. They led by 16 points with under 5 minutes to go, and it winds up being a 5-point margin, and UCLA had it within a possession in the final 30 to 45 seconds there. Yakachonis had 24 points, 8 boards, 4 dimes. Tomislav Ivicic had 16 and 8. Tyler Bilodeau had 25. Good win for the Illini. Illinois, Purdue, Wisconsin, Oregon all have 7 quad 1 wins in the Big Ten right now. I thought that was an important win. I said this over on the overnight show for HQ. An important win for the morale of Illinois and just having that kind of belief. Like, different circumstances, different team, different way you got the win, but similar to Kentucky, similar to UConn. There were wins that teams got on Tuesday that I think will have shelf life to each team's spirit. What were your thoughts on Bruins and Illini?
Yeah, almost a catastrophic meltdown from Illinois. To be clear, Jakachonis was huge, kind of closing that game out, 24-8-4 in that game. Cronin post game, talked a little bit about his team's performance. They were pretty good down the stretch. They nearly came back and won this one, but the defense was just not good enough. UCLA made 12 threes. Illinois made 11. UCLA actually made 10 of its last 11 shots, but Illinois just able to close this one. I think the narrative would have been a little bit different had Illinois blown this one. UCLA finished off that comeback, but not the case. Good win for Illinois. I think it was absolutely necessary. A good chunk of momentum closing off UCLA in that one.
SEC, a couple ones to get to. Florida beats Mississippi State 81-68. Alex Condon goes down with an ankle injury. It's a sprained ankle, to be determined on his return. It doesn't seem like he's going to be able to come back for the next couple of games, but he's a key big. And Florida, I mean, again, the Gators are showing that, like, at their peak power, when they go Voltron, they are as good as anyone in the country. Like, this is an insanely good win. Mississippi State's a really good team. You're on the road and they're in their house. Gators go on a 17-0 run to start the second half, and they delete the Bulldogs in the process. couple of Bulldogs got deleted on Tuesday night. Mass deletions going on. Jance's team is 0-5 against top 10 teams, or now 0-6, I think, against top 10 teams this season. So they've gotten good wins, but they haven't beaten the ones they need to overall to this point. Thomas Houck was outrageous. Here's a Jared Burson stat. So Houck had 16 points, 9 boards, 8 assists, 2 blocks, 2 steals. He's the first SEC player. So it's just SEC. It's not national, but still. First SEC player with 15-plus points, 8-plus boards, 8-plus assists, and multiple blocks and steals in a game since John Wall in 2010. That's a good Burson stat right there. Walter Clayton Jr. had 19, 6, and 6. Houck has been one of the best, if not the best, 6 men in the SEC and then de facto in the country. Massively impressive. Like, just Florida is stacking. I mean, we talked about Kentucky, all the top 15 wins. No one has more elite high-level wins. Florida is right there with just about anyone. I was immensely. Elijah Martin did not play in this game. They did not have 2 starters, and they treated Mississippi State as if it was just fodder. It was damn good. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, that was very impressive. 81-68 over Mississippi State. Florida, Norlander, it might be time to talk about Todd Golden as Coach of the Year.
Another one on the list.
I think.
Well, Mark Pope got back in the conversation last night.
Yeah, he's in the mix. He's in the mix, absolutely. But what Todd Golden has done at Florida, I think surpasses Pope by a good margin.
Yeah, 21-3 right now, by the way. And although Pope did win the one and only matchup, but that game was in rough. And that was an epic 106-100 game, one of the best games of the season.
Yeah, that was an awesome game. God, that was so good. But yes, 21-3, 8-3 in SEC play. No Elijah Martin, as you mentioned. Alex Condon suffered an ankle injury mid-game. Still found a way to win and win comfortably. Florida's beat 2 number 1 teams this season. Obviously beat Tennessee in January. They beat Auburn this past weekend, go on the road and win shorthanded against Mississippi State. This is a very, very good Florida team, a very, very deep Florida team, and the way that Todd Golden has been able to kind of mastermind this season, he's absolutely in the mix. This Florida team deserves its flowers, absolutely.
Yeah, Gators are going to get used to having the Gators on that one line because they've got South Carolina and Oklahoma next. Those are both at the O-Dome, at LSU, at Georgia. You know, I'd be surprised if it's anything worse than 3-1, and 4-0 is entirely possible in that. So Gators cruising here, and yeah, it's a super, super impressive win there. Auburn got a little bit of a flirtation from Vandy, ultimately wins 80-68. Tigers got out to a big lead. Vandy cut it to 2 at the half. It was Denver Jones in the first half for the Tigers. And then again, like Denver Jones and Chaney Johnson are doing more than Noah and Perry for Kentucky. But, Janai Broome finishes with 17, 7, and 3 blocks. That's a nice stat line. But if you watch the game, Janai Broome was not the first, second, probably not even the third most important player over the flow of 40 minutes for Auburn. But he got his. It was Jones in the first half, Chaney Johnson in the second, giving Auburn one chase early, and then once Vandy got back into it, Chaney Johnson took care of business there. So Auburn wins, Bama wins. It sets up, and this will be Friday's pod, obviously a huge setup for number 1. The court report on Wednesday here today, by the way, will lead on a ton of framing with 1 versus 2. Talk to Pearl, talk to Oates. I've got every 1 versus 2 matchup that's ever happened in the regular season and the postseason. So if you want anything and everything to know about 1 versus 2, we'll talk about it on Friday, but today's court report leads on that. And it's a fun deep dive. So enjoy that. Bama didn't mess around. Auburn didn't mess around. They both get road wins. It sets up for just the biggest basketball game in the history of the Yellowhammer State. That's good stuff there. By the way, the Tide got to 103. And it was the 7th time this season Alabama has hit 100 points. A couple more to housekeep with before we get out of here. Iowa State won at UCF. San Diego State got a scare against San Jose State, and San Diego State's, bubble team territory, so they avoid a road loss there. Utah State beat Colorado State, continuing the Mountain West objectives overall, and Oregon was able to handle Northwestern, which wasn't too much of a surprise. Real quick, KB, let's go to Monday. Just 2 results. Give me your thoughts on them. Baylor shoots 58% on the road against Houston. You shoot 58% against the Cougars in their house. Didn't matter. Still lost the game. Houston winds up getting the win, 76-65. The Cougars, again, just, they were better on the glass. They turned them over twice as many times. It was impressive. And then Carolina loses by 20 at Clemson, 85-65. Good for Clemson to keep on, that pace. Can it be like a 4, 5, 6 seed? You don't have to let down after Duke. I thought that was important. UNC is 14-11, and we're just about done here with the Tar Heels. I want KB first, and then get that mic ready, Nada. You are absolutely getting some time here to talk Tar Heels. So
yes, absolutely.
thoughts on Monday?
No, it's an impressive win for Houston over Baylor. Baylor, 15 turnovers. I thought that was kind of the backbreaker. They shot well from the floor, 58%, as you mentioned. VJ Edgecombe was really good, 14 points in that game. But Houston, so well coached, so physical, so good at capitalizing off of mistakes. And man, the Cougars, you give them 15 turnovers, they're going to take advantage of that. And they did. A really impressive win from Houston, and obviously Carolina. We'll give the floor to Nada here to talk a little bit about Carolina. I thought it was a really impressive win from Clemson, though. This is not really a letdown for Carolina as much as like Clemson's really good. They beat Duke, they beat Carolina, they rolled in a 20-point win, and Torvik actually has UNC's tourney chances at like 25%. Overall,
still healthier than they should be.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking too. But Hubert Davis post game talked a little bit about sense of urgency / emergency, and his assessment was it's just kind of sad. So it's a tough scene right now for Carolina. I'll cede my time, pass the floor to
all right, Nada.
Yeah,
take your lap.
Some of us warned this entire podcast
Yep.
in the first week of January. That
you got the exact date on you, Nada?
No, I don't have the exact date. But the first week in January, I told my hosts, Matt and Norlander and Gary Parrish, that this team was done, finished, cooked. Now it took 1 in 10 in Q1 wins for everybody to admit, hey, Nada might have been right the whole time. I'm just gonna say, when you have Clemson players claiming blue blood status over you, over blowing you out by 20, you might not want to have the coach there in North Carolina anymore. But they're done. Can we finally admit they're done?
I'm going to hit this because I was
Wrong.
Man, I was wrong again.
I think Nada just hit it with the 2 rings, Baldy.
It's close. It's really close. As I said, someone just dropped in the chat. I did say it on HQ Monday night. UNC has to pull an NC State at this point. Yeah, this team has no business. Let me North Carolina right now. Right now, North Carolina is 51 in the net. Best metric is BPS got UNC at 33. What are we doing here? 55 at Torvik, 45 at KenPom. Your resume stuff, it's 55 KPI, 48 strength of record, 48 wins above bubble. There's no like true cutoff line, but if you do not have a strength of record or wins above bubble as a high major program better than 40, 41, 42, probably not going to be willing to listen to your case from a resume standpoint. So yeah, UNC is they'll lose by 20 in that spot. The heat only continues. There are plenty of UNC fans have like been there for a minute, but after the loss here, there's a lot of them that are like, no, this is not reversible. Like this needs to be a Mike Woodson situation right now. They get to play at Syracuse on Saturday. Syracuse just lost at Miami, and Miami's been awful. The ACC, man. I tell you what, UNC's got at Syracuse, home to NC State, home to Virginia, at Florida State. None of those wins will help your case, but going 4-0 to get you to 18-11, we'll at least be looking at you. 18-11, okay, we'll still keep you in consideration, but we're just about done. We're just about done with the Tar Heels.
Yep.
And I think we're just about done with the show. KB, I appreciate you stepping in and doing some pinch hitting. Here's what you need to know for Wednesday and Thursday. Tuesday was so loaded that the Wednesday-Thursday slate, it's lacking a little bit here. 6 Eastern, I do love an early tip. I do like that. St. John's at Nova, FS1 on 6 Eastern on Wednesday. Obviously worth checking into, see if Nova can give St. John's a problem. And if they do, if Villanova wins, well then if you're a Creighton fan, all right, you still got a shot here. Then 9 Eastern, you've got Arizona State, Texas Tech on CBS Sports Network. Gary Parrish on the sideline. Can we get a Bob Hurley through his brother 2 rings Baldy at GP at like going into the halftime break? That's what I'd like to.
Please.
Cal Duke is ACC Network at 9 Eastern. I guess just see what Flag does in that one. LSU Arkansas ESPN2 at 9 Eastern. Arkansas, another bubble team. Don't lose at home to LSU. And then Oklahoma, Missouri is SEC Network at 9 Eastern on Wednesday night. So this vastly pales in comparison to what we had Tuesday. And then Thursday's pretty slow, but there are 2 games of note. Big Ten Network at 8:30 Eastern on Thursday. It's got Maryland at Nebraska. 2 teams. And Nebraska's got a better tournament resume than you might think, and a home win for the Huskers there. If Maryland can't walk into Pinnacle Bank, we'll get some Husker talk in on the Friday show. And then 11 Eastern, San Francisco at Gonzaga. Dons are good. Gonzaga, don't play with your food. A home loss there. If I know my man GP, if Gonzaga loses at home to San Francisco, we would probably lead the Friday show, not in glowing terms, but with the Zags on Friday. Any last words from you, KB, before we get out of here?
No, thanks for having me on. And hey, GP, good luck on Zona Texas Tech tonight.
Yeah, right. I got to go bring my kids to school. I think this is the 5th school day already that's either been canceled or delayed. So we had a 2-hour delay. We had like 3 inches overnight, and it was like soft powdery stuff. You get the 5:20 wake up call from the school district. I mean, what are we doing here?
We canceled school here today too. Oklahoma.
My wife's been watching the kiddos, but yeah, they've got it's 10:07 Eastern as we're wrapping up this show, and school starts at 10:25. So going to do the quick little drive down the road, drop them off. But I'm just telling you, when we grew up, I'm going old man status here. This amount of snow was not postponing the start of school. It just wasn't. It wasn't. I don't know what has happened. I don't know what has changed. And I also personally, I was telling my 9-year-old, I was like, I went totally old man. I was like, no, son, like I turned on the TV and there was a scroll and I would wait to see if my school said canceled or not.
Yes.
Or if it wasn't that, we had a radio and I would turn on the radio and every 10 minutes the host would list off the school. That's how we would find out.
Yes.
Kind of miss those days.
You don't know pain until you missed your school on the television set. And
I know.
You go to school, your parent would take you, and then you realize you don't have school. That was pain.
I'm telling you, Selection Sunday level vibes, just incredible. And then when you saw your school flash on the screen, literally, just like when you see your school flash on the screen on Selection Sunday, instant jubilation.
Amazing feeling. Absolutely.
That's a show. Thanks for everyone for watching. Please continue to listen and subscribe. And all sincerity, I think the Apple Podcast could use a few fresh reviews. So if you made it this far and you haven't dropped one in a while or ever, by all means, we are loaded up with shows and going to continue to bring you more and more and more. We love doing this show for you. So leave us some nice comments there. GP and I will be back in the saddle Friday morning, probably a 9 a.m. Eastern start on YouTube to set you up for a huge weekend led by, of course, number 1 versus 2. So till then, take care.
2 rings, Baldy.